Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have you with us. Thank you for everyone. For those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Saturday to you, boss.
Hey, awesome Saturday.
Awesome Saturday. It's always a good. Saturdays are great. Short, but great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, so I wanted to. I'm pretty sure you heard what happened with Lastpass. This past week, they were breached, and they were supposed to be uh, the most secure way to, keep your passwords and all this other stuff. And they touted, and somehow they got compromised. I was reading an article this week, and I'm like, well, I know Nadim's going to want to talk about this. Kind of take us through that, and more importantly, how MSPs react to things like this happening.
Yeah, so it wasn't just LastPass. LastPass made the news because they are the masters of passwords, right?
Right.
You basically put all their passwords in their castle, and they're supposed to guard that castle. Well, they left the keys to somebody else. But the other company that got breached last week was also Plex, and probably
Really?
didn't make the news because it's not an enterprise thing. Plex is more for entertainment, more for consumer use, but that's pretty significant too. And but what does this tell us from an MSP perspective? We take a step back and we look at the big picture. At the end of the day, apps are tools.
That's it. Yeah.
Any tool can break. If your process is right, if your mechanics process is good and well defined, it doesn't matter how many tools they break, they will get the job done.
Yeah.
And that's what an MSP is. It's your IT mechanic, right? And they use these tools. And these tools, sooner or later, they are going to break. It's almost like back when SolarWinds got breached. Everybody was like, oh, well, our RMM tool didn't get breached. And then the next one got breached. And the last one left was like, oh, ours didn't get breached. And then finally the last one got breached.
Yeah.
So the thing is, breaches are going to happen. They are here to stay. If your MSP's process is good, they will mitigate the fallout. And that's what it's all about. And that's why from the get-go, we always focused on results. And what that means is we have defined roles. We have people in the 5 defined roles, and each role knows what they need to do. Each role does their job, then you cannot circumvent some of the policies and processes in place. Like a lot of times I've seen this happen. I've seen this happen more and more with internal IT people at companies. And what they'll do is, and I'll give you an example. This is firsthand experience that I've seen. They needed to, this was a company, they needed to secure their network because they dealt with confidential information. And one of the requirements for the company that, issues the policy was that they have complex passwords, they expire passwords on a routine basis, or they have MFA. 3 options. You have to implement, 2 of these 3 options. Simple, right? Well, the IT guy, when he filled out that paperwork, he said that they expire passwords. Well, then, long story short, we came in and we were doing an assessment and found out that they were not expiring passwords. But it was just so convenient for the IT guy to say, oh, well, yeah, we do expire passwords. But then
Mm.
there was no other role, there was no centralized services to make sure that policy was always in place. If somebody temporarily disabled that policy for whatever reason, it's the centralized services role's job to go back and make sure on a routine basis that these things are in place. And that was a big issue when the IT guy says, "Hey, I am expiring passwords," but then a third party comes in like us and we find out, no, you're not expiring passwords. Basically, you lied on that application. What's going to happen when something bad happens?
Yeah.
That's going to come on you as the company that, hey, you said you were doing this, but you really weren't. And that's a big problem. Now we are seeing those kind of policies required by cyber insurance providers. A lot of companies are getting denied coverage because they don't have these policies in place, or their premiums just through the roof because they don't have these policies in place. Almost every week, we are running into customers where we have to fill out their cyber insurance providers paperwork, and a lot of times we are seeing where we come in with our policies, and the cyber insurance provider, they see our policies and our process and our tools in place, and they're like, okay, oh, PCSN's doing this, yeah, we've either worked with them or we know their process, we've gone through their process, we're going to give you a check mark. But like, and this was, it made me feel real good because this was a comment from a third party auditor telling the customer that we were working with, and he told them, it was like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys do this, well, you guys are good. And he told the customer, he said, well, you guys need to make sure that you keep this company in place.
I love it.
because
Nice.
because our processes were well defined, our roles were well defined. We already had a lot of the things that they were looking for in place. Basically, we were following industry standards, not just to say that we are following industry standards, but we were following it because they make sense. They're there for a reason. It's not to just check a box off. We're actually doing it on a daily basis. And that's what differentiates anybody else, like the 10-minute MSP from an actual MSP, is their processes. It's almost like how mature an MSP is. It's that maturity level. You get to a certain point where you've done this long enough, you've encountered all the goods and bads, and finally you come to the realization that, you know what? All these standards that are in place, they're in place for a reason. Nobody just woke up and figured out, okay, well, we need to, have complex passwords or we need to have MFA. These are issues that happened, and then these policies are put in place to take care of these issues. So at the end of the day, the Lastpass, the central repositories for all your passwords, basically your castle, a lot of services like consumer services, even like Plex or uh, pretty much any service out there, always assume breach, and you'll be good. Assume they're going to get breached. Work from it from that angle. As MSPs, when you focus on business results, all these smaller things automatically fall into place. These are
Right.
like the building blocks. When your vision is on building that cathedral, all these building blocks just put themselves in place. It's not an uphill battle anymore. It's only an uphill battle because you're laying down those bricks to build a cathedral, and your hands are bloody, and it's a day in, day out. It's just survival, right? It's tough because you don't see the big vision, which is that cathedral. When you see that cathedral, laying those bricks is now actually enjoyment because you know what the end result is going to be. You know what you're building, people are going to enjoy for generations to come. And that's what the process does. And that's why I always say, tools don't make businesses, don't make MSPs. And this is not just specific to MSPs, it's for any business. It's not tools. What does a business have? It's not tools. It's not talent. And I know some people are going to get, rubbed the wrong way with this, but really, if you look at it, all companies have access to the same talent. We live in the same world. You have access to the same talent. It's not talent. So when I hear a CEO say, "Oh no, we're never going to get breached because we have good people," so what do you think? Your competitor goes out and finds the worst people? No, it's what makes you different is your process. That's what makes companies different, their process. And that's what we bring to the table from an IT perspective is that process.
It's funny you bring that up. So, when I make my calls, just really, engaging some of the businesses in the area, and I get the rebuttal from business owners that, oh, we have a guy, that we've been using. He comes, he fixes our stuff, all that other good stuff. And if I bring up the question of, or when I usually tell them, hey, your tech guy is going to be bored if he meets with Nadeem because he's not going to talk about the schematics, fixing stuff. That's elementary. It's really going to talk to you about the process, the bottom line, your technology, and how it affects your bottom line. It's amazing to get the pause from individuals because I don't think a lot of other IT companies or MSPs, for that matter, bring that up. It's more along the lines of tickets and all of that. But what about the process?
I see this all the time. So what I talk to business owners about is the impact of IT in business. What
Yeah,
they're used to talking about is this one guy coming in and fixing stuff.
that's it.
Guys, there's just one role. We have 5 roles in any IT services company. Fixing stuff, that's just one role that you're talking about. You're in the weeds there. You need to pull yourself back up a little bit and look at the big picture. That's when you're going to start to focus on overall business results and not just get into the nitty gritty, you know, in the patties, so to speak. So you need to step back and look at the whole, the IT process as a whole, including all 5 roles. Don't just focus on one role, that one guy coming in and fixing problems. That's just one role. And by the way, that's the that's the lowest role on the totem pole. That does
Mm-hmm.
not deliver business value, right? The support guy does not deliver business value. That's just like a plumber coming and fixing your pipes from leaking. That's not business value. You're not building anything there. So take a step back, look at the overall impact of IT on business. And an example is the people coming in to clean your office and your lawyer, right? What's the difference? They're both service providers, right? People who are cleaning your office, you want to find the cheapest company that can come in and just clean your office, right? Now, when you talk about your lawyer, when you think about your lawyer, do you want to get the cheapest lawyer you can find?
Hope not.
So that's the difference. The thing is that whether people like it or not, IT is moving up the stack,
Yep.
right? IT is as time goes on, it's becoming more and more core process of any business. I don't care
Yeah.
what business. I mean, doctors' offices, retail establishments, professional services companies. It doesn't matter. Everybody needs IT. And
Yep.
IT is one of those critical roles that you can't just go and look for the cheapest one to provide it because it's a differentiator now. You want to find the best that you can afford, and that's what makes MSPs different. Like a lot of times I will refer, like I'll run into, business owners who are starting out, they're small, they just want some help. And I will refer them to somebody else because and they're like, oh well, Nadeem, I want you guys to handle this. Like, you're not ready for us yet. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
us to handle it. You're not ready for us yet. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, you'll be ready and we'll be talking again. But I'm telling you right now, you're not ready, but these guys can help you, right? These guys can help you get to a point where then we can come in and we can really start to impact that business. And that's what we like to do, is give you business results. Forget servers, forget computers, CPUs, RAM, network switches, forget all that. Business results. That's what we want to look at. And that's really what differentiates us from a lot of other providers out there.
And it's very interesting that you speak about this, because I think over the course of the last year, with the whole compliance piece, now we're really starting to see business owners look at IT in a whole different scope now, where they're like, man, I need this, and I need this, and it's all related to IT. The compliance piece related to IT, of course, the security piece. So, like you said, gone are the days where it's just a break fix issue. I think those days are gone altogether.
Yeah. Not only that, but let me give you another perspective. Back when the cloud was just becoming normal day-to-day routine use, I heard a lot of IT companies say, oh, well, this is really going to break into our profits. We're not going to make much money anymore because these cloud providers are going to be making money and blah, blah, blah. And, and, and I remember, this guy I was talking to, and he was like, why are you even considering this? You should be focused on deploying and managing servers, because that's where you guys make a lot of money. And it was like, and I was like, that's the wrong way to look at it. If I can give my customers better value by moving them to the cloud, I'm going to move them to the cloud. The thing is, we are not focused on individual servers, or whether it's a physical server or a cloud server or cloud infrastructure. Our role is changing constantly, and within the last couple of years, the major change has been that we kind of switched from providing that physical service to now providing that logical service. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's cloud driven, if it's driven by a third party, or who drives it. You still need the compliance, the process around that, to make sure that service is actually delivering business value. And at the end of the day, that actually helped us move up the stack, as opposed to if we had kept focusing on building servers and installing servers, we would still be installing servers. I mean, it's like, somebody, putting tires on your car. All they're going to do is put tires on your car. What else are they going to do? Right? So the thing is that the industry as a whole is evolving, and companies that do not evolve, do not stay with the times, are either going to get gobbled up by other companies, or they're just going to go out of business. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. I mean, it's,
yeah.
Any business out there, I know you guys, any business owners out there, I know you're thinking, oh, well, that's the whole industry, mergers and acquisitions is just hot right now. If you think it's hot in other industries, just look at the MSP industry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy right now. So the whole thing is because there's a huge shift where the entire industry is just moving up the stack, because it's becoming the core. It's like the spinal cord of the company. Every other system is connected to IT, and if IT breaks, the whole company breaks.
Yeah, that's true. It's an undeniable fact, and and the beauty of what when I first came to the PCSN, that I saw differently from other companies that deal in technology, was Nadim's focus on really getting the business owner to understand that there's a lot more to this than you just wanted me to come in and set your printer. And, it's amazing because for me, I came in thinking like, okay, IT company, printers, hardware, but then looking on the other side of it, it started to make a lot of sense. It really started to make a lot of sense, especially when we started to see at the beginning, at the beginning of COVID, height of COVID, it really started to make sense how you had to really switch the way you looked at your technology. That's just a break fix thing. It went way beyond that with all the breaches and things. So yeah, I think as time goes on, we're going to really start to see a total shift, in thinking, especially which like private equity firms, I think, are starting to see the value in it. And that's why they're starting to snatch up all the MSPs now because they're like, this goes far beyond, you know, the ancillary basic stuff. This is something else. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only going to gain more momentum as time goes on. And at the end of the day, there was the Industrial Revolution, and basically what happened was, like back in the day, factories used to generate their own power, and then you came up with the grid, and all these factories were now getting power from the grid, and there was huge efficiencies to be gained from that. And we're at that point where IT is really now going to change the world. And I know people have
Agreed.
been saying this for years, like, every little thing happens and they're like, oh yeah, IT is gonna really change. We're just at that cusp. We're so close to starting that time frame when everything really relies on IT. And
Yeah.
I say we are just on the starting point of that, is because what's going to happen is soon as AI becomes well, it's already a common word, but soon as AI processes start to intermingle with our daily lives, that's when the whole world is just going to change.
Well, ooh, Lord, that's a whole nother subject altogether because, we're if we're being really honest, we're just about there as far as the integration of AI in our everyday daily lives. I mean, that might be a whole nother subject matter altogether. And we've talked about it in the past, but my God, yeah, I'm willing to say within the last year since we talked about it, there have been so many advances as far as AI and just the everyday life, even from, what you mentioned it one time, and I didn't think about it. Microsoft, when we use Word, and how AI is an integral part of just checking the documents, suggestions that it gives. Man, it's starting to yeah, it's starting to
Yeah, and
change.
and there's and there's real business value in that, and I'll give you a little example of how MSPs, we as MSPs use it. So we're a member of a worldwide organization that kind of brings MSPs together, and we share data with each other, and you know try to help each other out and understand business better. And one of the things that we do is we like to compare metrics. And what we're doing right now is when we submit these metrics, we on the back end we use Power BI to kind of lay out those metrics and slice and dice it whichever way we want. And sometimes there are some metrics that we as humans or as individuals didn't even think about a certain trend, but then the AI kind of bubbles it up that, oh, by the way, I'm seeing this trend. And it's like, oh, we didn't think about that. Wait a minute.
Right.
How, why did that? And then you dig in a little deeper and find out, oh, this is why this is happening. And it makes sense. Let's move some resources into this area. So these things are just beginning to make direct business impact. And now look at it, compare two MSPs. One MSP is comparing this data to other MSPs around the world, and one MSP is just living in their own little siloed world. Who's going to be more successful? I mean, of course, the one who's sharing resources with other MSPs and understanding their data and has multiple dimensions that they understand, as opposed to this other MSP who only understands one dimension, right?
Yeah.
And so those things are really starting to coming to the business side of things, but I think the real shift is going to be when those things start coming into our daily lives, which, like you mentioned, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those applications already have a component of AI built in. And
Yep.
as time goes on, they're only going to get better because AI learns. So it's going to get better and better with time. So we're just at that cusp of that happening. And my, the last thing that I would say is it doesn't matter what business you are. If you have good process in place, if you have a good process in place, you will be successful. And that's what differentiates businesses. It's not people, it's not tools, it's your process.
Yes.
Focus on that process and you'll change the world. And I think with that, we'll call it a day, Mac.
Yes, sir.
It's been a great Saturday so far, and I was actually kind of dozing off over there, and then we started this, and I got all worked up. Have a good one,
Awesome.
everybody, and be safe out there.
Everybody have a good one.